for years. But today, members of parliament across the political divide challenge the process through which members of the Council of State are appointed and confirmed. The president may have sworn in the new council, but MPs are demanding that the appointments be subjected to strict parliamentary scrutiny, such as vetting by the Appointments Committee before confirmation. The MPs' demands are based on the standing orders of the House. The orders make it mandatory for members of the Council of State to be scrutinized by the Appointments Committee, which has the sole power to recommend the approval or otherwise of the council members. Papa Uswankoma, MP for Sekondi, and Matthew OPOKU PREMPEH, MP for Manhyia South, raised the challenge. We'll hear from Parliament shortly as that debate ensued today on the floor of Parliament. We'll also be listening to Dr. Benjamin KUNBUOR, who is the majority leader. He acknowledged the problem and called for a review of the rules. Now, we will also be speaking again to a lawyer to understand what this means as far as this means for that already constituted Council of Elders. All that coming up shortly here on Top Story. By Mr. the lawyer ABOTSI, who will be joining us shortly for that analysis. We'll also be speaking with Matthew OPOKU PREMPEH. We'll take a short break right now. We'll return with details. We can now join that discussion on the floor of Parliament, and you can listen to Papa Uswankoma, who is MP for Sekondi, and Matthew OPOKU PREMPEH, who is MP for Manhyia South, as they raise the key issues as far as the procedure for appointments and confirmation of the Council of State is concerned. Listen.
I wish, Mr. Speaker, to refer the House to Order 1722 on the work of the Appointments Committee. It says, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, it shall be the duty of the committee to recommend to Parliament for approval or otherwise persons nominated by the President for appointment as Ministers of State, Deputy Ministers, members of the Council of State, for emphasis. So, our standing orders, probably, I don't know, envisaged Parliament taking a position in respect of nominations by the President for membership of the Council of State. However, since I entered this Parliament in 1997, no formal process has been put in place.
On the Council of State, we shouldn't create the impression that the elected members are superior than the than the president's nominees. So there's an understanding that those that the president are nominating, who are not going through election, Parliament should fashion a way. So our first meeting of the Appointments Committee this year, this side of Parliament, it was generally decided that yes, we should fashion a way and bring all those people to us.
The Majority Leader, Dr. Benjamin KUNBUOR, acknowledged the problem and called for a review of the rules.
Taking note of, I have had the opportunity to discuss with your good self as to whether it is not time for us to begin to put some processes in place. But the particular standing order that has been referred to by the honorable member, read together with the relevant article, requires that we do a bit more of a closer reading and interpretation, taking both the standing order and the Constitution together. In situations where appointments are to be made, with the advice of a particular institution, it is clear. In other situations in which it has to be in relation to consultations, it becomes a bit dicey. Now, when you see the word appointment that has been used, where it goes together with prior approval, then that puts us in a completely different category. So I'm not sure we can use in an unmodified form the way Order 172 is to address this issue on the Council of State.
You heard the Majority Leader, Dr. Benjamin KUNBUOR. Well, the President has already this week appointed and sworn in the Council of State. The question then is, what will this controversy in Parliament mean for the already constituted Council of State? We will be joined by a member of the Appointments Committee shortly. But first, I called up the man who first raised the issue on the floor of Parliament today, Papa Oswankuma, MP for Sekondi, and first asked what had triggered his concerns now.
Raising this matter for Parliament to look at it so that if it means in amending our standing orders, we may make a special provision exempting the Council of State from that category of persons to be considered for by Parliament or by the Appointments Committee to Parliament for appointment. We do that.
So there should be there should be some form of parliamentary approval, and Parliament, as they say, is a master of its own rules.
Rules. Yes.
But in this case, your point is that that hasn't been done.
That has never been done in Parliament, not to look at.
So the possibility, there's a real possibility that Parliament in this case might just be breaching its own rules.
That is it's arguable though, because really we are not being asked by the Constitution to approve persons nominated by the President to Council of State.
Let me ask, for those who say, why now? Because this has been the practice, as you've explained, for years, since 1992. You've been in Parliament for a considerable number of those years. Yes. Why are we bringing it up now?
You know what? I just think that the time has come for Parliament, in respect of its own procedures, in respect of its own processes, to have a second look at the way we've been doing things over the years. That's why I raised it.
So what does this mean for the already constituted Council of State? Let's speak to a member of the Appointments Committee, Matthew OPOKU PREMPEH, MP for Manhyia South. Thank you, sir, for your time. We understand this issue was brought to the attention of the Appointments Committee when it first met this year. I'm wondering whether it was resolved.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners. Yes, I think it was one of the issues we raised at the Appointments Committee. It is not the Appointments Committee of Parliament. It's not set up to deal with only those who the Constitution says prior approval. There are different categories of appointments that are made by the President. Some of which come to Parliament for prior approval. Some which come to Parliament for ordinary approval. Some which come to Parliament on a consultation basis. But once the Constitution says something should come to the House of Parliament, but necessarily it has to be referred to a committee to deal with it, because hardly does Parliament sit plenary without first going through a committee on an issue. So when we first met, the different categories of nominees that come to the Appointments Committee included those of the Council of State who are not elected. The judiciary, they come to the Supreme Court, they come to Parliament. The ministers of state and whatnot and what so forth. But they are different categories. Even the Vice President, the Constitution says that prior approval. The Constitution says approval of the Vice President. So all these, we got the point that it's the Appointment Committee, our standing orders, that deals with it. The standing orders in Order 192 only says that things that are not already decided by the standing orders, that is when the House as a whole can decide on what to do. But things that have already been enshrined in the standing orders, it's for those committees to deal with it. And Council of State includes one of those things that have been given to the Appointments Committee to deal with. Okay. So we necessarily, before we even the President started nominating his people, we said that we should find a way of dealing with the different categories of appointments that are going to be made and how we are going to fashion the process dealing with those things.
I'm wondering then how we got to this point where the council had already been appointed and indeed sworn in, they started their work. And obviously from what you're saying, those things that you were demanding had not been fulfilled.
Blatantly, I don't subscribe to things with nonsense like you feel that it's unconstitutional, not constitutional. It's blatantly flouting the powers of Parliament and the Constitution. Why would you bring two ex-official members or two former service members of the country's security service to appointment committee? We just have to insist on doing what is right. But when you have a Parliament where some people are striving to catch the eye and get president for nomination, these things get swept under the carpet. But I'm very, very happy that everybody who spoke, including the majority leader, the speaker, and other former majority leader, all who spoke said, yes, we should fashion a way to deal with those nominees. None of them said they shouldn't come to Parliament. Everybody agreed that they should come to Parliament. But the way we deal with it is different from those that are coming for prayer approval, those that are coming for ordinary approval, those that come like the judiciary and things like that. So that is the way we have to fashion. And I don't for a second believe that if we haven't fashioned a way, it doesn't mean that the president should not bring it to us.
Mr. PREMPEH, kindly stay on the line for me because I've been joined by a legal practitioner and law lecturer, Mr. KOFI ABOTSI. The question I want to ask you, Mr. ABOTSI, is what this means for the already constituted and indeed sworn-in Council of State? Hello, Mr. ABOTSI. We're struggling to hear you. I don't know if repositioning will be a way to rectify it, but let's try and see if we can reposition yourself so we can hear you properly.
Am I clear?
No. Okay. We'll try and call you back on the better line. Hopefully, we can get a clear reception from your end. But Mr. OPOKU PREMPEH, MP for Manhyia South, is on the line. You want to attempt answering that question about what that means, what this whole debate we are having right now means for the already constituted and sworn-in Council of State?
Personally, I wanted to discuss with my leadership whether we shouldn't bring a motion for the president to bring those nominees to Parliament. But we must respect some of these things, that this is a matter of consultation. And so we may understand that, like the Speaker said, if anybody has something against them, we should voice it out. Consultation also means that when you consult somebody, doesn't mean you will take your advice. So we appreciate that choice. But it is not for nothing that there is a consultation with Parliament. Parliament must be seen to be consulted. Parliament must be consulted. And the only forum as existed as standing order for consultation with Parliament is the Appointment Committee. So that referral should be made to Parliament. Appointment Committee must be made to set. We fashion a way, just like for the first time in the history of the country, the Vice President was nominated by the President.
And indeed vetted.
Find a decorous way of dealing with the Vice President to bring the esteem, the dignity of Ghana to the necessary level.
Mr. PREMPEH, thankfully, we've been joined by Mr. ABOTSI again. I wanted to kindly stay on the line for me briefly. Let me put that question to him. Let's get a legal education on this. Mr. ABOTSI, thank you for rejoining us. What's your position on that? What does this mean for the already constituted Council of State? They've been sworn in already.
Well, as I mentioned, I said I'm not quite sure whether it affects the constitutionality of the body in any way. And I think I'm a bit confused as to what Parliament is asking. I'm not sure if Parliament is saying that the constitution of the body is at the moment in contravention of the Constitution, or that it is only ideal that they come before Parliament. In respect of the constitutionality, as I said earlier, I do not see anything legally wrong with the Constitution of the Council of State at the moment. But in terms of, again, whether they should have come to Parliament for prior approval, among others, in comparison to ministers and others, I think it is also quite important for us to pay attention to the nature of the body we are dealing with. The Council of State is nothing more than an advisory chamber for the President. Its advice is not even binding on the President in many respects. And therefore, the President in choosing his advisors, I'm not quite sure whether we're saying that it is feasible and indeed logical for the President's advisors to be approved by Parliament. If the President decides to choose bad advisors, we should say that so be it, because he is judged by the quality of his work on the basis of his advice, and so is equally judged by the porosity of those advice. So I'm not, again, quite sure what the basis of the call for approving people who essentially are going to advise the president. I'm not quite sure what the basis of that is. Of course, I'm also mindful of the fact that beyond advising the president, the Council of State Forest is consulted in the appointment of judges, among others. So their work goes a little beyond merely advising the president, but their work essentially is advisorial, and that is, I think, the basis on which the Constitution gives the president that laxity to essentially determine who is there, as opposed to getting Parliament to cross-check. The distinction between those and ministers, though, and I think I do agree with the Honorable Martin OPOKU PREMPEH in respect of the ministers who are vetted and the basis for the vetting. Ministers have access to state resources, among others, and yes, they are not ordinarily elected. The Constitution is saying, therefore, that for people who are going to be agents of the president and who are going to be entrusted with state resources, among others, if they are not going to stand election, they would have to be overseen by persons who have been elected, and that is why Parliament comes in as far as that is concerned. But in the case of the Council of State, it is important that we pay attention to the peculiarity of that particular body as opposed to just lumping it up with other state institutions. Okay,
Mr. Abotsi, I'm grateful for your time. That's law lecturer KOFI Abotsi there. I was hoping to speak to Mr. OPOKU PREMPEH again, but just ran out of time. But I'm sure we've not had the last of this debate. The question really will be, so basically as we move forward and Parliament trying to fashion out its own rules to deal with this matter, how will this reflect in future Council of States as they are appointed by the President? Will it mean some vetting of a sort? This is something that we'll try and interrogate further. You want to stay with us on Newsline as we pursue those other angles. Also on Newsline, we'll be telling you about an alert issued by Cocoa Board today to cocoa farmers across the country about a chemical that is already in the system, but it's banned and it's toxic, and it will have strict severe international implications for our cocoa export. We'll be telling you about that on Newsnight. My name is Evans Mensah, and Top Story is brought to you by Bond Financial Services, also brought to you by Liveboy, Blue Rose Limited, as well as Bellacom Mineral Water.